Hi, greetings from Cambridge, Massachusetts. This is Len Edgerly with the Kindle Chronicles, and it's a rainy night. I think the nor'easter has finally found Cambridge and is delivering a soaking rain tonight. Kind of sounds nice here in my cozy studio. This week I'm bringing you an interview with a frequent guest on the show, James McQuivey of Forrester Research, and we had a entertaining and enlightening talk about the new products which Amazon announced a couple of weeks ago when I was out there in Seattle. So we'll hear from him. It's a good long interview with as much intelligence and fun as we always have when McQuivey is on the show. It's really a treat. Let's jump into a couple of news stories, too, and then I've got some tech tips as well. In the news, there were two big stories. One was 11,000 words, one was 13,000 words that appeared, one in the New Yorker and one in the Atlantic yesterday and today. They're very different stories, and I'll have links to them in the show notes. We'll give you my first impressions. I read both of them today, and I greatly prefer the one which is in the Atlantic. It's titled Jeff Bezos' Master Plan by Franklin Foer. That's F-O-E-R. And the subtitle is What the Amazon Founder and CEO Wants for His Empire and What That Means for the Rest of Us. This is a thoughtful piece. A lot of reporting went into it, and it's not so much a traditional news portrait of the company and Bezos, which is the Charles Duhigg story in the New Yorker, which is titled Is Amazon Unstoppable? That's more in that genre, and I'll tell you my critique of that next. But Foer's piece looks at Bezos as a thinker, as a visionary, and he puts a lot of emphasis, I think appropriately, on Jeff's vision for colonizing space, something which he's had ever since he was a boy following Star Trek, and of course the Blue Origin effort that he's putting $1 billion to into each year for this very long-term project of having options that enable people to move off the planet at a time when the growth in the human population is going to make it unsustainable. The article in the New Yorker by Duhigg doesn't even mention Blue Origin, and I find it kind of an offensive piece. It's sort of masquerading as fair journalism, and there are some quotes from Amazon executives. I was glad to see that Amazon made some people available to Duhigg so that he was able to quote them, and there were some, I thought, fair rebuttals to some of the points he was making. That pretty much along the lines of Amazon's too big, it needs to be regulated, it's taking unfair advantage of the platform that it's created. Quotes from retailers and people with real business interests that I think make their complaints about Amazon a little bit tainted if you're really trying to get an objective view of the company's impact on the society, and very little from the point of view of customers. And here's a company whose customer ratings are just off the chart, and the trust level of Amazon by customers. You'd never really get much of a whiff of that by reading this article. The Duhigg article in the New Yorker quotes Ian Fried, who was on the show early on. I had him on a couple of times because he was the head Kindle guy back in the day, and he went on to do some other things in Amazon, and he's since left the company, so he spoke quite openly and fairly critically, but I think there was some nuance to his take on Amazon as well. But two big articles, and if you are as interested in Amazon as I am, you might want to. If you only have time to read one of them, I'd recommend the Atlantic piece. And if you want to see both of them, then they're both available everywhere. Second item in news: Fire HD 10. There's a new one out. This came out. There was an embargoed press release that I think it was able to. Link to it on Monday. The Fire HD 10 is the biggest Fire tablet. It's still $150 as the previous one, which was released in 2017. This one is available for pre-order, and it ships on October 30th. If you order before then, you get a Minecraft app, and that's worth $7. You get it for free if you order before the 30th. This tablet is faster. It's gigahertz versus 1.8 gigahertz processor. It has longer battery life, 12 hours versus 10. It has a USB-C adapter, that charges the adapter. I kind of prefer that. I see that on some of my things, like my Samsung or my Oculus Quest headset has that, and my Apple computer has that. So I think that maybe is a faster charger. I also like it because there isn't an up and a down version of it. You just plug it in either way and it works. It's very slightly heavier than the previous one, 1/10 of an ounce heavier, and you can put more storage into it with a 512 gigabyte card versus 256 gigabytes. I think the screen resolution is exactly the same, but the front-facing camera, which you would use if you were using this tablet for a Skype call, has got higher quality than before. Nice upgrade, same price. I've ordered one, and I'll look forward to trying it out and letting you know about it when it arrives, which should be on October 30th. Also announced in that same cycle, the embargoed release this week, is a Kindle Kids edition, and that's going to be released on October 19th. An Engadget story by Igor Bonifacic, if that's the way you pronounce it, says it's the first ever e-reader aimed at children. So it's actually a Kindle, a basic Kindle, which normally sells for $90, and it's priced for $20 over that, $110, in kind of a bundle. You get the basic Kindle plus a case, and they have 4 playful case colors. One's blue, one's pink, and then one's called Rainbow Birds, and one's called Space Station. This Kindle is the new one that came out, I think, in April, so it does have a front light. It's a pretty nice device. For that Kindle Kids Edition package, you also get 1 year of Free Time Unlimited, and that's the sort of kids-oriented subscription of 20,000 titles, including Harry Potter, Boxcar Children. You get books, videos, and apps that are all curated so that they're appropriate for kids. You also get a 2-year worry-free guarantee, and apparently if you drop it, break it, you can get a new one. And it's if a device that's being used by kids can get some wear and tear, and this guarantee takes sort of the anxiety out of it. It says that they build fun wallpapers into it. So I guess if you look at when you wake up this Kindle from sleep, you'll see some maybe kid appropriate designs that show up as the wallpaper. If you buy 2, you get 25% off, so that's a $55 savings, and the combined price would be $165 instead of $220. This looks like a nice, kid-oriented Kindle to think about. If I think about my grandsons 5 and 3, Jake and Ryan, that we babysat last week, and I always have to negotiate bringing new technology into the house with my daughter Rue, because she has a clear and I think very defensible hesitation to. She has to hold Grandpa back from a lot of his enthusiasm for technology, and I think I might be talking to her about this Kindle Kids Edition to see if she thinks it's Jake and Ryan might be ready for it. Let's have some bumper music, and then we'll go to the tech tip. For some reason, I can't find the track that has the bumper music, and it's getting late, so I'll just go do-do-do-doot, do-do-do-doot. And now it's time for the tech tip. I've got 2 good questions that came in from listeners, both named David. One was David Sauerbeck, and he asked a question about immersion reading and whether or not he could use that feature, which enables you to listen to an Audible book at the same time that it's highlighting the words on a Fire tablet. And the question was, can you use that with Free Time subscription? And that's the one we just talked about. It's $4.99 a month without Prime and $2.99 a month with Prime. So a lot of times what I do when I don't know the answer to a question, which I did in this case, is I forward it to my contacts at Amazon. And I heard back yesterday, I think, from Jessica, a woman that I've worked with a lot there, and she answered as follows. After looking into the specifics of David's questions, we have a couple of points to share with links embedded to help with navigation, and I'll have these in the show notes. First, to generally find content that offers an immersion reading experience, look for Kindle with Audible Narration, and that's when in the book descriptions. These titles are the ones that have enabled Whispersync for voice. On that page, you can select Kindle Unlimited eligible or Prime Reading eligible. And to dive deeper and find books within an age range, which is one of the questions David had, you can click children's ebooks in the left column, and that's a way to sort through the listings that you're looking for. And that takes you to a list of 10,000 Whispersync for voice-enabled children's books. That's a handy way to get right to those children's books that you want to have the immersion reading with. And this is because his son has got some learning challenges, and so it's really helpful to have this, reading challenges, to have this technology. So that's a way to get to those books for certain age groups. You can choose ages 9 to 12 on the Kindle, on the children's Kindle books page, and then if you click ebooks with Audible Narration on the left, then that's how you get it. As you browse, you'll see there are a variety of books that are select Kindle Unlimited eligible or Prime Reading eligible. She says that immersion reading is available on the Kindle app for Android, the Kindle app for iOS, and Fire tablets, second generation and newer. Separately, there are more than 2,500 ebooks and over 1,000 Audible books available within Amazon Freetime Unlimited in the U.S. However, immersion reading is not supported within the Freetime child profile. That's too bad. I think that's what David was hoping. He'd be able to take advantage of the free time subscription he's using and for his son, and then also get to the immersion. So there is an overlap between those two, which is too bad. David Enzel had a question, which he sent to me. He's just bought an Oasis, loves it, and it encourages me to read rather than listen to audiobooks, he said. He said that he had just read The Spy and the Traitor by Ben McIntyre, an amazing spy story that's also true. He loved it, and the sample was generous and drew him in to buy the book. And then he says, I just downloaded a sample of Ian McEwan's The Cockroach. The sample consisted of the table of contents, not even the first few paragraphs. Is the length of the sample controlled by Amazon or the publisher? Seems to be no consistency. Hoping you can shed light. Keep up the good work on your wonderful podcast. David. Jessica, actually this just showed up tonight in time for the show. She wrote, Hi Len, thanks for passing this along. There was a technical error with the sample for The Cockroach, which has now been resolved. So David Enzel found a glitch, and maybe we get that fixed by inquiring about it. If you have any questions, sometimes I can answer them myself, and if not, I've got good resources on the Kindle team to answer questions. You can send me your questions at podchronicles@gmail.com. Let's turn to my conversation with James McQuivey, Vice President, Principal Analyst at Forrester Research. And I began by asking James in this conversation why, as early as 5 years ago, he foresaw an Amazon device similar to the Echo Flex. That was one of the ones that was announced 2 weeks ago. It sells for $25. It's available November 14th, and you just plug it in anywhere in your home, so you can have Alexa capability all through the house. And he talked about this, as I said, 5 years ago. And it turns out that the reason he saw this coming was that he felt it was a logical implementation of Alexa's strategy. And he explained it this way.
The whole strategy from the beginning should have been to make microphones available everywhere that you could possibly want to access Amazon. Now, at the time I wrote that in 2014, there wasn't a lot that people could imagine you would want from Amazon. And then when later the first Echo device came out, everyone said, oh, it's a smart speaker, it plays music. And so they'd think, well, why would you want music as a plug-in air freshener style object at the, just above the baseboard in some wall in some room? And so a lot of people didn't buy the idea that I was selling because they didn't understand that eventually the microphone was the key to the relationship, not so much the speaker itself, although the speaker was, think of it as the bait. that got us all hooked. And then once hooked, it's the microphone that matters the most. And so the strategy for Amazon now is get that microphone into as many places as possible and to make us a very small form factor. And I did love that they were able to show images of all the ways that people had put echo dots in creative places as a way to say, look, we're going to solve for this problem, as if it was customer demand, which of course it is, but it's really something that you could foresee from the very, very beginning. This is where they were going to be.
And there were related products announced that even take it outside the home, the Echo Buds, the frames, the Loop. What's the significance of those items?
Yeah, let's remember that there was a time when Amazon tried to make a phone.
Ah, yes.
And everyone likes to point out, see, even Amazon can fail. But in many ways, they're in a better position now than if they'd had success with the phone, because in the world of phones, of course, you have to compete constantly to keep up with Apple's new phone features and cameras and all of that technology. But your goal at that point isn't to even have a phone. Your goal is just to be persistently connected to the consumer. It's a lot cheaper to put some buds in their ears, to make Alexa the default digital assistant on their phone, even if the phone is made by Samsung or Google or even Apple. That's really the easier success path. And it creates these opportunities where, you don't want to walk around with earbuds in your ears all the time. Oh, okay, let's put it on your eyeglasses. It's such an easy story for Amazon to say that what they're doing is just responding to people's desire to have Alexa available to them. And as someone who travels a lot, this is an easy value proposition for someone like me, to not have to think, oh, I need to ask Alexa a question and then remember I can't because I'm on the road. To be able to just ask Alexa that question will be amazing. And that's what this has been all about from the very beginning. It's the battle that's going to play out now between Google, Apple, and Amazon for the next 5 years and beyond, really. There's no reason this battle ends between the three of them because they're all in very strong position to offer you this kind of persistent digital assistant that we're going to see them step up their efforts. It's just a question of what other form factors they can all invent.
Well, and you called it, I saw you were quoted in a Wired article and saying that the next battle is for your lifestyle, not for your pocket. What are you pointing at there? Yeah.
Well, the getting into your pocket seems like a win. Apple's in your pocket, Google's in your pocket. But really, well, first of all, we do have data. 40% of U.S. adults are tired of pulling their phone out of their pocket every time they need something. Talk about first world problems. But it's true. I mean, we've all experienced that fatigue. We've always like, oh, I'm going to have to, especially if you're sitting somewhere, you have to reach into your pocket and pull it out, unlock it, or let it see your face or your fingerprint or whatever. All of these things are super convenient, and it's amazing technology. I mean, Dick Tracy never had it so good. And yet we think, oh, it's such a hassle to do that. We just want our devices to figure us out. Well, what are they figuring out? They're not figuring out which app we want to use. They're figuring out what benefits we want for our lifestyle, that we want to solve a problem for a family member, that we want to communicate with someone, that we want to bring some momentary distraction to our lives. And whoever figures that out and delivers it automatically, that's a lifestyle solution, not, look, we own the territory inside your pocket. We now win. That's not true anymore.
It seems like the Apple Watch was a step along this road because to have a phone in my pocket and not have to reach for it when I'm at a meeting, I can kind of surreptitiously check a text message appearing on the screen of the watch. Would Amazon ever compete for that space and come out with an Echo Watch?
I'm actually surprised that they haven't done that, that they went straight for eyeglasses before doing a watch. Again, it makes me wonder if they've just decided that competing in that fast-moving personal technology is a little bit outside of their ken. When you think about, they've successfully taken on the tablet wars, and their, Kindle and Fire tablets are quite remarkable and sell quite well, of course. But they're not the best tablets in the market. The good news for tablet makers is that there's not really a lot of competition to make the next best tablet. They just need to be good enough. So Amazon's done quite well there. But when you're talking about phones, when you're talking about watches, and I even think when we start talking about virtual reality eyeglasses and augmented reality headsets, that's harder tech. And that's going to be a really tough, billion-dollar investment. And I don't know that they need to do that in order to keep you talking to Alexa. But so far, their strategy of having other device makers put Alexa in their devices is working quite well as well. I mean, even even Facebook has put Alexa into the Facebook portal.
Right.
So there's a company that really should have been investing in its own digital assistant, and has opted instead to promote Alexa as part of its portal experience. I have one, and it works quite well. It's not, you don't get all the full functionality that you get out of an Echo Show, but it still works quite well. But it shows you right there that, hey, if we can get them to do it, could we eventually get Samsung to do it? Could we get anyone else who's trying to make a smartwatch to do it? But honestly, the smartwatch business, no one's keeping up with Apple in terms of the tech, other than the advanced running watches from Garmin. And some of those kinds of things. So if I'm Amazon, I think, as long as I have if I have earbuds, I have eyeglasses, and probably I'll be able to be an option to be a microphone-based assistant on a future smartwatch that Samsung makes. I'm probably in good enough position.
So there's an Alexa app on my iPhone, but I don't have a comparable Alexa app on my watch to where I can do some kind of summoning of Alexa on the watch. Is that something that Apple would simply think is
block?
Yeah, just not going to give them that.
Apple's not going to let that happen. No, that's just too important that Siri be the thing that controls your smartwatch experience. And honestly, Samsung would like to believe the same as well. And Samsung's Galaxy watches are really quite good, but they don't have good voice. A good voice experience. So it's the kind of thing where Samsung might hold out on that for a while, but probably give in at some point. And we'll just see if the Garmin and there's only a handful of people really making quality watches, smartwatches at this point. And it's probably easy to get the sort of second and third tier smartwatch makers to throw Alexa on there, but because the watches will be so underpowered, they're probably unimpressive as an Alexa platform. We'll have to see. I'd say give that one another year or two. If Amazon can't get into some of these other watches, they might finally do a deal with a third-party manufacturer and just get into at least a handful of watches so they can see what the experience needs to be like.
Yeah. They announced at Seattle that GM is going to put Alexa in all of its cars, and there were a number of other brands there. I've been playing with the Echo Auto in my car, and it's slow. It depends on being wired. In my car, I can't do it with a cable. I have to use Bluetooth, but it is. I find myself using it quite a bit when I'm in the car. Do you think the whole auto placement of Alexa is pretty key to this battle?
Yes, it is. And if you're an automaker, you'd much rather invite Amazon into your relationship with the driver than Google or Apple. Google or Apple are device makers. They're going to compete with the razzle-dazzle of your dashboard that you're investing, hundreds of millions of dollars in your dashboard technology. So it's just a lot easier to invite Amazon in there and feel less of a threat from Amazon, although Amazon is honestly in the long run as big a threat to the relationship. The automakers, they still have to figure out what it is they're trying to accomplish in their digital relationships with their customers, because most people get in the car, they use the in-dash experience available from a Ford or a GM, and they find out that it's so limited that they still end up sticking their phone on some kind of dash phone holder and using it to Bluetooth and bypassing most of the features of their in-dash systems. So I think these, if you're an automaker, you come pretty quickly to the realization that you're never going to do as good a job of this as some of the other companies. So of the lesser of three evils, if you will, it's Amazon.
Yeah. My Tesla has a beautiful big screen, of course, and there's there's no ability to build Alexa into that. Well, I can do it by using the Echo Auto, but they might be somebody that could actually compete with what the other three can do.
Yeah, so Tesla is an interesting example because from the beginning they've made it hard to integrate anybody else's technology in there, and they've made their experience so elegant. I mean, it really is a completely different experience that, you can almost imagine there are people who can't wait to get in their car just to have that experience. But I don't see that level of investment from any other automaker. Even though every CES we get a big investment, and a big announcement from some automaker saying, "Oh, we're finally going to solve the in-dash problem." Yeah. And it's Audi one year, and it's Ford the next year, and it's BMW the next year. And they all have money to invest in this, but this is just not their skill.
Yeah.
They don't have digital expertise at the core of how they understand their customer.
The other thing which made me recall some of your gazing into the future from prior years was when Dave Limp talked about frustration detection, that Alexa next year is they're going to start it with music. And he did a funny little demo where he asked Alexa to play a song and she got the wrong song. And so he shouted at the device and then she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you seem to be upset," or something like that. But does this put us a step closer to some of the creative ideas you had about Alexa actually detecting the emotions of people and saying, "Well, it sounds like you're raising your voice to each other. Maybe you'd like to buy this book about marriage counseling"?
Yeah, you remember it well. I did indeed write that in the very first prediction before Alexa even came out, that eventually listening not to just what you say, but how you say it is going to matter. Now, to listen to how I and my wife talk to each other, that's something that people aren't ready for yet. Yeah. Most people, I am. I'd be fine with that. But I'm in that 20% of people who love this stuff. If you think of it, it's sort of 60-20. There's 20 who are scared to death of these things and they want the government to stop it all. There's 20 who are ready today, like me, and we want to try it all, even if we later decide we're not going to keep using it. And there's 60 in the middle that are easily swayed by whatever the New York Times says any particular week, which lately is all negative. So, there's probably a big chunk of people right now who are, I don't want to have that. That would be terrible. So Amazon's strategy is really smart because it gets us gradually accustomed to the idea that the voice entity on the other side is perceptive enough to know when we're upset. Now, this accomplishes some short-run goals and some long-run goals. In the short run, it gets us to treat Alexa better. There is a lot of verbal abuse that people shower on Alexa, and this is something we know anytime you introduce robotics into an environment. There's something uncanny about robotics that makes some people feel the need to sort of – you could even imagine a sort of an animalistic urge to demonstrate dominance, like they sort of physically abuse robots. It's very common if you've seen some of those videos about Japanese school children abusing the security robots on their school campuses and things. And I just say Japanese because that's the one example I can think of right now. But this does happen really commonly. Same thing with Alexa. People and Siri and OK Google. People routinely treated in abusive ways, and they think it's funny, and they'll laugh about it. Well, that's fine. Although you want to ask yourself, why do I feel the need to abuse a digital assistant? Might be useful therapy to go and explore that a bit. But if you're Amazon or if you're any of these companies, you want people in the long run to begin to interact in a more naturalistic way, to have a sense that this entity cares about you, and in order for that sense to be true, you have to care about it or at least respect its feelings. And so when they first introduced the ability to say thank you to Alexa, and Alexa would say don't mention it or whatever, pre-scripted, there's no actual person in there, of course, but that would help you start to treat Alexa with a little more baseline respect. Now, knowing that Alexa is sensitive to the way you treat her, and they're going to position it as it's for you. She'll be sensitive so she knows you're upset so she can understand how to treat you. But really, it's so that you will also treat her better. Because 5 years from now, when you're saying, Alexa, I'm having a really rough day, you'll divulge that to her because she, and I'm using the pronoun intentionally, because that's part of this anthropomorphizing of the relationship, is that you have to start assigning characteristics. Now, if you want to assign male characteristics, that's fine, or gender neutral, that's fine. It doesn't matter which characteristics you assign. But you're going to have to assign some human intention, and you're going to have to assign some properties to Alexa. And that those properties are, this entity understands me, this entity cares about my well-being, this entity is here to help, which are all things that we're more or less starting to do more and more of every day. but adding this perceptive ability is a really smart way to make us interact more respectfully in the short run, and then become more trusting in the long run.
Are we going to be seeing a science fiction competition among the intelligent agents, Google, Siri, and Alexa? I can imagine that if you get there first with your AI feeling more human, feeling nicer, feeling just you're almost creating a personality from scratch. And if you create the most compelling personality compared with Google or Siri or the others, that's a huge competitive advantage. But it's sort of mind-boggling to think that there's great resources and talent being applied to create these entities who aren't human, but who are going to have an edge if they can become the most human-like and not only just the most human-like, but sort of the nicest humans, the nicest personality may win.
Well, it's interesting. There is, of course, a rather crude from the previous movie coming out here, and I'm going to blank on the name. I apologize. Where they've essentially created this idea of a digital assistant in a phone who treats you maybe the way a pal or a how do you say this? A crude friend would treat you as a way to get you off the couch and get you out there and, improve yourself, because just having a voice that's constantly saying that you're okay and everything's going to be fine and I'll bring it to you. You don't even have to get off the couch may seem like a hyper convenience offering, but sometimes you need someone to sort of Dr. Phil you, and just say, hey, you got to get up and be a human about this and go do the right thing and, repent or forgive or all those kinds of things that sometimes we feel like we need to be told. So there is an interesting angle on what you're saying, which is, you might become the first company to learn how to make something so human that people really feel like they need to talk to it on a daily basis. But the definition of human is going to be unique to each of us. Someone's going to need that voice to constantly reassure you and tell you everything's going to be okay. And someone else is going to need like a fitness coach who's going to say, get up off the couch. Come on, let's get out there. You're wasting time, So that'll be interesting to see. And I think there's going to be a lot of failed experiments along that road. But in the long run, your Alexa is going to be different from mine. And that requires a lot of built-up learning over time. And if you think about it, Alexa has that data. I mean, Alexa knows everything from Amazon, knows everything that I have ever read, which in 20 some odd years of buying from Amazon, we're talking thousands of pages of more than thousands of pages of books. They could basically guess at what kind of personality approach is going to be most stimulating for me and most positive for me, and tailor Alexa to me in a way that I would thoroughly appreciate.
Yeah.
And for someone who's on the opposite end of the spectrum who doesn't really want to be intruded upon, well, there's a personality approach to that person as well.
Yeah.
A personality approach that constantly says, I'm not telling anyone anything. This is between you and me. This is just you and me. I'm not letting anyone know that we're talking about this right now. I don't know what it will look like, but it'll be very personalized. Let's put it that way.
I can imagine that you could wake up, and I usually know what kind of a day I'm going to have and whether I need somebody to kick my butt or to coddle me, and you could just say, Alexa, go to kick my butt mode, or Alexa, go to coddle mode.
That's actually great. Write that down, Len, because I think you just won. I'm gonna say that, and I'm gonna credit you with it forever because yes, it's at some point past that, Alexa will know whether you're in kick my butt mode or coddle me mode. But for the first little while, you have to train it. I'm one of those people. I have on my right hand ring finger, I have an Oura device, which is a continuous heart rate monitor while I sleep, and it tracks your sleep better than some of the other devices that do sleep tracking. I have a lot of issues with sleep, so I track it. I'm one of those people. Well, that data could upload to Alexa every morning, and then it could shape the way Alexa treats me in the morning. Yeah. And right now, I look at that data every morning when I wake up, and I say, okay, that sort of fits with how I feel right now, or doesn't. But for Alexa to then come in with, all right, time to go. Are you going to run 5 miles this morning or 10?
She doesn't do that if she sees you've only had 4 hours of sleep.
Right. She might say, hey, let's roll out of bed and let's just meditate for a while and have a nice warm bath. Who knows what'll come out of that. But I'm excited for all of this.
Yeah, me too. And I love that idea that there's 20% of us that can't wait and 20% that are terrified. And they're both equally defensible stances to take.
Yeah, they really are. They really are. The debate that I have with some of my colleagues who are more on the other side, and it is interesting to think about technology analysts who are on that other side. We need them because they need to offset my rampant optimism. But the debate they'll often have is they feel like, well, because they feel the need for concern and caution, that everyone should be willing to hold back while they wait for reassurances that the government's got it under control, that the technology is safe, and so on. And my approach is completely libertarian. It's like, you don't need to use this stuff, but don't stop me from using it. And I had a very interesting – one of my colleagues is just a brilliant, brilliant woman who's very much – I'm not going to say she's all the way to that 20% on the other side, but she's closer there than she is towards my side. And she said, but in doing so, you're denying my agency. It's a very thoughtful argument she made, meaning this, that in order for me to get Google Maps or any of these other services, I basically have to opt in to the whole deal, the whole package. And so I no longer have the choice to avoid the whole package because I either get all of these benefits, including the ones I don't want, or none of them. It's an interesting argument. I don't happen to think it's totally true. I mean, you can use Google Maps with all kinds of things turned off.
Right.
You can use most of these devices with a lot of things turned off. Apple has specifically targeted people by saying we're going to process all of the Siri interactions in the device on the chip so that none of it gets sent back unless you allow us to send it back, that kind of thing. So, I think in the end, the libertarian side of me feels like should win. I should be able to do this stuff, and you shouldn't be able to stop me. I feel that same way about self-driving cars, by the way, although that's probably unfair of me because if you've seen the hassle that the Tesla summon feature has caused in a small number of cases, but those are serious things when self-driving car crashes into somebody or gets pulled over by the police or whatever. That can be very disconcerting. I understand that. So there I feel like, okay, moving a couple of tons of metal down the road, maybe there should be rules on that. But if it's just me talking to Alexa in the privacy of my own home, I think you should let me do that.
Exactly. I remember when I attended your webinar in April that you mentioned a Lumo robot, a $1,799 robot that you were experimenting with in your house. Yeah. And Bloomberg this summer reported that Amazon is still working on a home robot codenamed Vesta. I think they thought it might be out this year. It's probably not going to be out this year. I'm wondering, does your experience with Luma give you any insight into what Amazon might or should be designing into an Alexa on wheels?
Yeah, it's a tough call. First of all, much more important than Amazon invest in a robot than trying to get back into phones or even to a smartwatch, and certainly augmented reality. Let's just prioritize. Robot is the next thing. The question is, what should the robot do? The Lumo from Segway is designed to be slightly about personal transportation and a few other robotic things. They're hoping it'll become a industrial tool more than a personal home device or just a hoverboard that's really expensive. The thing that Amazon has to decide is, what are we going to enable this robot to focus? Is it just a mobile microphone, which now that you can buy these Glade air freshener microphones, you don't need so much a mobile microphone. Could it be a mobile screen and camera? That, I think, is probably one of the more important things it can do. You've got an Amazon bot into security cameras as part of its digital home ecosystem. So, if you're somewhere and you need to look at something back in your home from a fixed position that makes sense, the doorway, the hallway, or whatever, you can tap into those cameras today, the Ring cameras, for example, the Blink cameras, and so on. But I find myself, it's interesting, just because I think about these things. I'm not going to say a lot of people would want this service, but I find myself often thinking, I wish I could go look at this one particular thing in close-up that I don't remember if I left it on. I don't remember if I put it away. I don't remember where it is. I need to send someone to my house to go pick it up, but I don't remember if I put it in the basement or if I put it upstairs. And I can't just tell someone, go case my house and hope that you find it. It's blue and it's this size. It would be better if I send my robot around and I find it, and then I snap a picture of that and send it to them. Now, these are very edge use cases. I'm not talking about a big demand for this. But once you have this, you will find lots of reasons to use it. Following up on your pet. Where's the dog in the house? Now, a lot of people have pet cams already. But if the dog's not in front of the cameras that you have in your home, well, then you don't really have any luck there. So having a robot that follows your pet. I think the robot that is your pet, and I've written about this extensively, this is going to be a $40 billion or an entry into a $40 billion business because people spend that much on their pets today in the United States. And so what portion of that would somebody who already has a pet but can't really take care of one anymore? So think about someone who's aging in place. And this has always been my contention about Alexa's potential, is that when you have aging parents that want to stay at home, putting, as people do, they put Alexas with cameras. They put Facebook Portal is very good for this as well. They put all these devices in their homes. But really, in the long run, you need something mobile in that home that can find your parent and check in with them and make them feel warmly towards it. So it's a digital pet robot, I think, is the best angle they should be pursuing on that. I don't know that they'll agree with me on this one, but they'll eventually come around no matter where they start with robotics. If they start thinking of robotics as a way to do errands in the home, then I think that'll take too long to develop, because it'll be too hard to create specialized tools that can, grapple things, turn things on, take care of, problems in the home, sense for water leaks or all that kind of stuff. That'll eventually happen, but the technology is going to be harder to pull off. Having something that's basically a mobile Alexa that's a pet, and that you can use the camera on it to see things when you're not home or see someone that you can't be close to, that to me feels like the easy win.
What would you name it?
Ooh, I didn't even think about that. Ooh, you caught me. I'm usually
first
pretty
thought,
good at this
best
with
thought.
Alexa names. Yeah, first thought, let's see. Well, they're really stuck with the Alexa name. The weirdest name just came to me. It's terrible. Spox instead of Spock.
I like it.
That's terrible.
Spox.
I'll have to think
that
about
would
something
terrify the other 20%, but I think you and me and the rest of us would love it.
We're all for it.
Okay, that's another one to save for the next few years. Last thing I want to talk to you about is they mentioned something called Sidewalk, which is a low bandwidth network. I guess it's built on a part of the radio spectrum usually used for amateur radio, 900 megahertz, extending the range of sprinkler detection, mailbox alerts, things like that, beyond what you can do with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And they tested it in L.A., apparently among 700 employees, and they were able to kind of cover the whole city with it. Is this the first visible occurrence of something that is pretty significant in Amazon's building out an entirely new network?
Well, it doesn't have to grow to be that significant to be useful to Amazon. At a minimum, if they can simply use the technology to extend Alexa to your own home. Because as we know, Wi-Fi doesn't do super well out at the sprinkler, out at the mailbox, out at where you have a security camera outside of your home even. And so just to have some limited ability to communicate with or control those devices is going to be very crucial. But if it does go bigger than that, and if they can get more coverage, then now you're talking about the ability for Alexa to be useful in your car even if you don't have your phone with you. And that becomes – you essentially want Alexa to be able to talk to you anywhere you are, and you want your eyeglasses to work even if you don't have your phone with you. I mean, imagine that.
Yeah.
Because everywhere we go now, even if we have a smartwatch, even people who have smartwatches that have their own radio connection to the internet, they still bring their phones. Mm-hmm. And if you could imagine, there's a big play for Amazon to make here about all the be present messaging and, be close to the people who are with you, not looking at your screens, but looking at them. Imagine going to dinner with just Alexa in your ear or Alexa in your eyeglasses, just as a backup in case you need something, but you don't have to have your phone with you. You don't have to feel that odd rectangle that warms up oddly on your leg, as I describe what my phone is doing to me right now. That's a smart move. It doesn't have to go there for it to have been useful for Amazon, but if it does go there, everybody else is going to be hitting themselves in the forehead and saying, why did we not think of this as a way to jump? I mean, think about how paradoxical this is. Amazon has created this character of Alexa in the home, and everyone else is rushing to catch up to it. And now they would suddenly be backing away and saying, Alexa's not about more invasive technology. It's about easing the requirements of today's technology so that you don't feel as compelled to have it with you. I mean, that'd be an amazing message. It would cause a lot of people who have angst about Amazon to experience some cognitive dissonance. But I think people like me would think that's exactly what we want. We don't want to be constantly wired. We don't want brain implants. We just want the ability to get information and communication when we need it at the way we need it. And Amazon is essentially saying, in your car, on your ear, in your pocket, sure, in your environment, in your home, we're just going to thread all this together so that you can use it when you need it, and it just disappears into the background when you don't.
Yeah, and they're helping you to become more human or more connected at the human level, because this brick that we carry around, I mean, my wife wants to throw something at me every time I pick that thing up out of my pocket. And
yes. Let's talk about that ring. That was an interesting form factor choice. I didn't think that was where I would have started this soon, but I love it. I love that they're willing to test that out. Because, again, I don't want to have earbuds in my ears all the time. I think that's more invasive as a technology than having a phone in your pocket. I mean, I do want it sometimes, but not all the time. I like the eyeglasses, but for those of us who don't wear glasses, it's not necessarily a win. So having the ring, and I already wear a large chunky ring. I told you I sleep with one every night, so I'm good with another technology ring on my hands. I maybe need to make them look more attractive because people keep wondering, why do you have that plastic thing on your hand? So I think that's a smart move. I don't think it's going to be widely adopted right out of the gate, and of course it's only in a beta stage anyway. But I think over time people will realize there's a lot of sense to this. And there's, again, another device which, if you can have it speak to Alexa over a very low frequency, wide area network technology like Sidewalk, now you're talking about a pervasive, connectivity that's unmatched.
Yeah, exactly. What are you reading these days? Is there a book that is bringing you into a new understanding of reality at some level?
Well, actually, that's exactly the right question. So I'm a huge Neal Stephenson fan. And for people who read Snow Crash and Diamond Age back in the day when he first was showing his amazing capabilities, you're with me. You know what I'm talking about. For people who have never gotten into Neal Stephenson because that's science fiction, or that's cyberpunk back in the day, that's what they called some of that kind of fiction. He has written a series that he just tied up this year. I didn't even know he intended to tie it up, but it came out. It's called Labyrinth. It's so Neal Stephenson spelled with a PH. There's a character that he has threaded through some of his books and decided to bring that character to full fruition in this book. So it's not like it was intended to always fit together. At least it doesn't seem like it. But the one that started this particular series was a book called Reamde, Reamde, which is an inversion of README, which, if you remember back in the day when you would install software that you would get off of a floppy disk, there'd always be a file on it called README. And README was that file that you'd look at. It would say, here's the updates, here's the things to look about, here's how to install it. Well, Reamde was an idea of a virus that a character in this book, Reamde, made that would trick people into saying, Reamde? That must mean README. And then they'd click on it and it would install the virus. And the book he built around that idea of the virus was just amazing. It involved digital reality to a degree that no one else had visualized yet, which is Stephenson's trademark. He has the ability to visualize the future way, way better than I do. And his in that original Reamde book, he threw together global politics. He foresaw kind of ultra-nationalist I'm not going to say white supremacy, but more, dig down the trenches, more like a Y2K kind of thing where you're going to live with lots of guns in a bunker in case somebody comes for you. So he's an amazing writer. I'd really like to meet him someday. Anyway, this last one, which I said is called what did I say? It was Labyrinth, which is Labyrinth : Fall, or Dodge in Hell. It's a very ungainly title, but when you know the characters and you know the books, it makes total sense. It is the pièce de résistance in the virtual reality imagining. No one has imagined virtual reality to this degree. No one has made it this archetypal, this mythical. It is absolutely, and in doing so, he ties together the mythic traditions of basically all of humanity. He just has an incredible scope in his vision, not to mention being a very compelling writer. So I feel like for a guy who really pre-envisioned the internet itself when he wrote Snow Crash, and for him to now pre-envision virtual reality to this degree, it's definitely worth a read. So it did actually change my perception of reality, though you may have been joking when you asked.
Yeah. I stumbled onto that one. I hit it.
I will just say the other thing, because this summer was the summer of the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. I did quite a bit of reading on the moon landing. I went back and, rather than reading all the new stuff that people were encapsulating, I went back and reread. So I actually had never read The Right Stuff, which isn't about the moon landing. It's about the years that lead up to the creation of NASA and the space program. But, it's Tom Wolfe. Can't go wrong there.
Yep.
And I also read Apollo. Now, Apollo is a book that I think was written at the 25th anniversary, or maybe the 20th anniversary of the moon landing. And it was written by the academic Charles Murray, who then later on went on to write a whole bunch of books that some people really, really hate, including The Bell Curve. But this book, Apollo, was one of his first. And he's the most libertarian guy you'll ever see. And if you can look past your political disagreements with him, you'll see that very clearly in his writing. That's what motivates him. It's all about individual agency and freedom. To know who he is, and to know that he and his wife wrote this book together 30 years ago now, I guess, not 25. It's really, really interesting because the book itself is a masterwork. They had primary access to all the people who were involved. And they have stories in there that no one else got access to because no one else sat. I mean, think about it. 20 years after the moon landing, we were already kind of over the moon landing. We'd done the space shuttles. We'd shut down the moon program. People were talking about, it was a waste of money. All we got out of it was Tang. Or Velcro, and for them to write about it then and make it clear that it was a miraculous achievement of individual and collective will, and then for us now 50 years later to inhabit their space from 30 years ago and see what it was like 20 years before that. Really, really amazing book. I don't know if maybe the moment's passed, but if anyone is still thinking about wanting to make sure that you understand what we accomplished when we accomplished the Apollo, and I think when I say we, I mean the whole world. I don't just mean America. Then these are two outstanding books I would recommend heartily.
Fantastic. I have been speaking with James McQuivey, Vice President and Principal Analyst at Forrester Research. Thanks very much, James.
Always a pleasure, Len.
That's it for this week. And I hope you maybe have tried the Morning Journal. That's my flash briefing skill that you can listen to on Alexa. If you search the Alexa Skills Store for Morning Journal, click Enable, and then just say, Alexa, what's new? And you'll hear each day just some thoughts. I do them in the morning and try to think of something that might be of interest in 2 or 3 minutes and kind of feeling my way forward. But it's a lot of fun. And if you have a chance to check it out and let me know what you think, I'd appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye.